Hello, welcome to Raymond Castile's Basement of Horror. Here we are, after Halloween. I'm always a little depressed after the Halloween season ends, and I need a little break. So we're back from our Halloween break. Let's see, before I talk about the main subject, I have a little show and tell here. If you watched my unalive stream, I did a little rant about this NECA Dr. Chalice figure, which was originally a convention exclusive, and then they made a small quantity available online. And I'm not sure if they've released like an edition number, how many were sold online. I haven't really looked for it, so I don't know. But this is the online version of the NECA Dr. Chalice. There's the man. And he comes with his little beer can and beer bottle. NECA uses their own toys for the artwork on these boxes. And, you know, it makes sense. They don't have to go through any license approval. Like, if they had Tom Atkins' actual photo, then they might have to submit this box to him and have him approve it. But because he's already approved the likeness and the photos are of the actual toy, they don't have to, they can save a step. There's the poster art. But I wish that they didn't do that. I would prefer that they, well, you know, they could have the photos of the toy on the back or on one side, but then I wish they had photos from the movie. Makes sense to me. You've got a licensed movie toy. Let's have some photos from the movie. They've got the poster. That's the poster image. But everything else, all the other art on here is derived from photographs of the actual toy itself. And this online version comes with this coaster, appropriate for a Dr. Chalice figure. He would have a coaster. Would he bother using a coaster? I don't think he would care very much about using a coaster. He'd just set his bottle or can right on the table. And that's what's on the back. Now, I was surprised when this came and this coaster was separate. I thought this coaster would be inside the box behind the figure, but it's just shipped along with the toy. The only difference between the convention version and this, as far as I can tell, is that the convention version has the limited edition numbered sticker, this little circular sticker right here, and this version does not. This is not numbered. The convention version is numbered. And because of that, I have to wonder if they might just start producing these as a regular item. I don't know. I don't know what their plans are. I haven't read anything about their plans, and they probably wouldn't tell us anyway. Just surprise us. One day you'd walk into Target and there'd be 10 of these on the shelf. I don't know. But I am glad that they decided to make it a little more available. It sold out in a day on the NECA website, so it's not that much more available, but at least people who wanted it had a chance to get it. And then if they didn't, you know, it's on them. They had their chance. Whereas before, when it was just a convention exclusive and nothing else, then you really didn't have a chance. You either bought a plane ticket and hotel, rental car, convention ticket, meals, spent $1,000, $2,000 or whatever to go across the country, unless you just happened to live near Pasadena, go across the country just to get an action figure. That wasn't going to work. So it really was not available to the general public. It was only available to the convention goers. By putting it on their site, they made it available. If you wanted it, you could get it. Good. I'm glad they did that. So that's just a little show and tell. The real topic of this episode is right here. General Mills cereal monsters. And the reason we're doing this, another bit of show and tell that arrived around the same time. Actually, when this arrived, I thought it was the Dr. Chalice. I thought, oh boy, my Dr. Chalice has finally arrived in the mail. Yippee. And instead it was Blueberry. That's cool too, but I was like, oh, I was hoping it was Dr. Chalice. No, it was Blueberry. So they both arrived about the same time. Chalice arrived the next day. So there's a Blueberry box. No, there's no cereal in there. There's a toy, which we will look at in a second. Really cute box. I gotta hand it to these boxes. They're really, really, really cute. "2023 Jada Toys, City of Industry, California, made in China." So this is a Jada Toys Blueberry. And I would have covered this earlier. I would have covered the whole line earlier, except for reasons I will explain. We're not going to just look at that. We're going to look at the Count Chocula figure. That's not a cereal box, that's a toy box. And the Frankenberry figure. Well, that's the back. There we go. Really, really beautiful boxes on these Jada toys. And you might remember that we covered Jada Universal Monsters figures a couple years ago. And I wasn't that crazy about them. I mean, they're okay, but I thought there was room for improvement with the Universal Monsters. I think these are much better. I think they did a much better job on these cereal monsters. Well, the first two they released were Count Chocula and Frankenberry. And they put those out in 2021. That was the 50th anniversary of the General Mills cereal monsters. Now, these are not vintage boxes. These are actually 2021 boxes. These are nostalgic, retro boxes. I wouldn't say they're reissues. They're not exactly, exact replicas of the 70s boxes, but they are retro 70s style, reminiscent of the 70s boxes. 2021 was the 50th anniversary of those characters, at least the first two, Count Chocula and Frankenberry. So Jada put out those action figures to commemorate the 50th anniversary. But at the time I said, well, I'm not going to review these now, because by the time I got my hands on them, there were already plenty of YouTube reviews that were months old. But if they make a Blueberry, I said to myself, if they make a Blueberry, then I'll review all three of them. Or, of course, if they also made Fruit Brood or anything else, then I'd review the expanded set. So when they announced this Blueberry, I said, okay, I'll go ahead and do that episode that I wanted to do in 2021. But it took a long time to ship this Blueberry. It was kind of like the Chalice. It was a convention exclusive. And I ordered it the week it was announced. And it was just a few days away from the convention. So I thought, oh, well, I'll get this really quick because they've already produced them because they're going to be available for sale at the convention. so I should be able to get my blueberry in a week or two. Well, no, it took a couple of months. And I was beginning to wonder if maybe my order hadn't gone through, but then I noticed other people hadn't received theirs either. And then they started to show up in the mail as people online were saying, oh, I got my blueberry. But it was very sporadic. It wasn't like everyone got it at one time. It was like one person would get it one week and a couple people would get it the next week. And I was thinking, well, I haven't got mine yet. It was very strange the way they got out. And then by the time it finally arrived in October, just like before, there had already been plenty of YouTube reviews online for months because people had got them at that convention months prior. So, but I told myself if they made a blueberry, I would do an episode. So I am fulfilling that promise to myself. They made a blueberry, so I'm going to do an episode. And these are not really conducive to this program because I'm a mint and box and MIB collector. I don't take anything out of the box. And just like you saw with that Chalice, it's kind of hard to review some of these modern toys in these boxes. They don't lend themselves to photography inside the box. And particularly with Jada, I think there's a culture around Jada collectors. They appeal to a certain part of the collecting community that's really all about taking the toys out and posing them. But, that's not what we do here. We're a mint and box show. So let's look at this again. There's Blueberry. It's a really, really lovely box. I think the box might be the best thing about these toys. And it's very reminiscent of the 70s cereal boxes. That looks like nutrition information. What is that really? Action figure facts, I see. This box front glows in the dark. You can kind of feel the texture of the glow-in-the-dark paint. And that's cool. It kind of reminds me of the records they used to put on the back of the cereal boxes. They would actually print a record and it would have grooves on it, but it would be stamped onto the box. It would have a texture. It would be really cool. You'd cut the record out of the box and play it on your record player. And this has a texture. It's not a record, it's glow in the dark, but it kind of reminds me of that. And yeah, it does have a picture of the toy here. It's got plenty of original artwork as well. Now, most of this art on the back is modern looking. This is in 70s. I mean, the main art, that's very 70s, but this background stuff, that's not 70s, that's recent. All right, well, let's put you there for the moment. We'll look at those in a second. Oh, you might notice I've got this poster back. I was looking for a new poster to hang up there, and I was at the point where am I going to delay a new episode because I don't have a poster? No. But that's what it was getting down to. So I finally just said, hey, people like this poster, so I'll use that again. This is a vintage blacklight poster from the 70s, and it's called Nightmare. Actually, that's the name down there, Nightmare. And it's not a reproduction. They do sell reproductions, but this is not a reproduction. That's a genuine 1970s vintage blacklight poster. And I always get a lot of good feedback when I use that. So I figured, hey, why not? Let's let's bring it back again. And I think all of this artwork is taken from somewhere else. It's all inspired, ripped off of other sources. And I know people online have identified where it's all from, where each of these characters were taken from, but I don't know off the top of my head. But it was all based on pre-existing art, like from comic books, stuff like that. Now, about the cereal monsters, yes, I did grow up with the monster cereals. They were introduced in 1971. General Mills had a strawberry cereal and a chocolate cereal prepared, and they were looking for a gimmick to sell these two varieties of cereal. And for some reason, they wanted to sell them together. They were similar except for the flavors, but they were, I think, oat-based. They were made of oats, and they had little cylindrical marshmallows, little miniature marshmallows. So they were similar in the style and the look of it, but the flavors were different. They had strawberry and chocolate, and they wanted to market these together. And they were looking all over for some gimmick. And finally they decided to use a classic, iconic pear. Not the pear that you eat, a pair of characters that were already known to the public. And they looked through all different famous pairs, famous duos, and finally settled on Boris Karloff's Frankenstein and Bela Lugosi's Dracula as an iconic pair that would go together and have some mild conflict, and there was something there to hang an ad campaign on. And they developed these animated versions of Dracula and Frankenstein and called them Frankenberry and Count Chocula, introduced them in 1971. And I looked at the original commercials, the very first ones, online, and I remember those. I saw those commercials. I remember those specific commercials. So I was all in right at the beginning of this. I already loved monsters even at that very young age, and I was excited about monster cereal. Boo Berry came along in 1972. He was introduced at the end of 72, December of 72, and he was based on Peter Lorre. Not a particular character as far as I know, just the actor Peter Lorre, and you can kind of see even even his face, even the look of this character looks like Peter Lorre. And an interesting thing, the early commercials that I watched online, they're a little different. Let me look at the box here. This is a 2021 anniversary box, but it's very similar to the 70s boxes. And I used to have some vintage General Mills monster cereal boxes. I used to have some back in the 90s. I had a little collection of them. And they just priced themselves out of my collection. I bought them for like $10, $15 each, and they got up into like the $200 range. And these are cereal boxes. How much do I really want these? And at some point in the 90s, like late 90s, I let them go. Okay, there's some things I regret selling, but it would be nice to have a couple now, but it's okay. So, yeah, I used to have some vintage 70s and 80s General Mills monster boxes. Not now. I bought these 2021 boxes specifically because of the action figures. I wanted them to go together with the action figures. So here is Boo Berry, and that's pretty much what he looked like. But I noticed on the commercials from the 70s, he has, I don't remember if he has the bow tie at the beginning, but he has chains, kind of like A Christmas Carol, like Jacob Marley, very Jacob Marley influence with all the chains. But he has what appears to be nipple piercings, and he has a chain that's attached at each end right there. And he has a link at the end of each chain that goes into his body right there, and then hangs down like that. I mean, that is pretty progressive for Mr. Booberry. It's like the cruising edition of Booberry. And I never noticed that before, but I watched these 70s commercials and said, what the? Very interesting. The chain is not just draped over him, it's connected to what would be his nipples, if he had any. Very strange. Oh, that's 70s for you. That's my period that's the decade that made me, the 70s. But other than that, he looks pretty much the same as he did back then. Doesn't have the chains on him though. Now this back, this is different. This is that's not authentic. But this front, I think they did a good job of capturing the 70s look in all these boxes. Let's see, is the no, it's not the same. I thought maybe the cereal box would be the same as the toy box. It's not. They're angled differently. This one, to my eyes, looks more authentic, more 70s. Well, it's cute. It's not quite right as far as authenticity, but it's cute. We'll stick with Blueberry. Okay, let's open this thing. We're not opening the box. We're not going to take it out of the box. But let's open the lid. And it has a magnetic lid, so there's no Velcro to come loose like the NECA figures. Well, I don't think there... Yeah, there we go. See, no Velcro. It's magnets. That's him. There's not much to this figure. But he does look cute. And he has his little Blueberry box there. They all come with cereal boxes like that. And somewhere in there, I can't really see it. I think, yeah, there's his base. He has a base and a rod that gives him the illusion of floating. It is a cute little figure, and I think they did a good job of capturing him. I would have preferred if his arms were a little shorter, maybe. Do those arms swing outward? I don't think so. It looks like they... Oh, yeah, I guess they... No? Maybe they don't. It looks like his wrists move and his arms move, but I don't think they move out. Like, that looks like the box art, but if you look closely, the arms are moving forward, not out to the side. So it would have been nice if he had maybe a little bit shorter arms that perhaps could go straight out to the side or even up in that pose. But, that's a minor issue. I think they did a good job of translating that. It's a difficult character to capture in plastic. Like, how do you make that translucent white edge like that? How do you do that in plastic? They tried, and I think it's pretty good. I can imagine a much better toy. In fact, I owned a much better toy at one point. But for this format, I think they did a good job. Given the format, they would have had to have sacrificed practically all of the posability. And I know that this is aimed at a certain segment of collectors that really put a premium on posability. And there's his face. It looks like a mask that you would have cut out of the back of a cereal box in the 70s. Where's Blueberry? I'll put you back here. So, Blueberry came out in 72, and then Fruit Brute came out in 74, and he was discontinued in 82. Then Yummy Mummy, the other fruit monster, was introduced in 1987, and Yummy Mummy was canceled in 1992. And then they didn't have another monster until just this year, 2023, when they introduced Carmilla Creeper. Carmilla Creeper, she's the first female General Mills cereal monster. She's a zombie, a green zombie, and she's also a DJ. And I have not tried Carmilla Creeper cereal, and I haven't bought her box since it's the first, I was going to say first edition, it's the introduction of that character. It might be a good idea to buy one of those boxes, but I don't know if on my deathbed 30, 40 years from now, I'm going to be nostalgically looking back at Carmilla Creeper. Someone who's a kid right now, though, might have a lot of nostalgia for that 30 years from now. And I don't think Carmilla is based on any actor like the original three were. And Fruit Brute and Yummy Mummy, they weren't based on actors, and their voices weren't based on any particular actor. I'm kind of ambivalent about Carmilla Creeper. I'm really preferential towards the 70s monsters, particularly, Fruit Brute is included. He's 74, so he's one of the gang, but Count Chocula, Frankenberry, Blueberry, Fruit Brute, I'm very partial to those original 1970s, those four 1970s monsters. Yummy Mummy, he's kind of a extra monster, and then Carmilla coming so much later. It's hard to really put her with the rest. She doesn't seem to quite go with the rest. They were going to make a female monster back in the 90s, and they were thinking of Bride of Frankenstein type designs, and they shelved that idea. But Carmilla has some Bride of Frankenstein elements. She's got Bride of Frankenstein silver streaks in her hair. Her hair seems very much inspired by Bride of Frankenstein. She's got some stitches that are very Frankenstein-like, more Frankenstein than zombie. So that Bride of Frankenstein idea sort of lingered another 20-something years and finally turned into this character. These days, the cereal monsters are only available during the Halloween season. Sometimes they come out a little earlier, like in the summer, but officially they're available for the Halloween season. And that started in 2010. Prior to 2010, they were available all year round. When I was growing up, of course, they were always at the store. Kids wanted monsters all year round. Now they only want them for Halloween. But I wonder how much of the marketing is really aimed at kids and how much is aimed at adults. These are very traditional looking designs for the anniversary, but most years they're very stylized, too stylized. And I don't know who that's appealing to. I guess kids, but I don't know. I'm not sure if kids are really into these the way their parents or grandparents are. I said I had a better toy of Blueberry. I don't have it anymore. Just like those boxes. This is something I had in the 90s. I used to have 3 boxed Product People vinyl General Mills monsters. I had Blueberry, Count Chocula, and Fruit Brute in boxes. The boxes were kind of rough, but they were there. They had their boxes. And those were great. They didn't move. They had no articulation. They just stood there. But they were beautiful, lovingly made, detailed 70s toys from the period of the characters, from the era in which they were introduced. They were contemporaneous with the toys. And I wanted them as a kid. I saw them advertised, and I couldn't get them back then. But as a collector, I acquired them in the 1990s. And the reason I finally sold them was because, not just the fact that they were expensive and I could get money for them, but also I could never get Frankenberry. The product people, Frankenberry, is notorious for being impossible to find. You might find a loose one, but a box one, forget it. They exist. They did make them. They made Frankenberry, and they made them in a box, just like the rest. But it's almost impossible to find one now. So I was able to get the Boo Berry, the Count Chocula, the Fruit Brood, and I thought, oh, I'll get Frankenberry now, and I have the complete set. And years passed, and I could not get Frankenberry. I could not find him. It wasn't even a matter of money. I just couldn't find him at all. At any price. He just wasn't available. And when I can't complete a set, I get angry. I get upset. And finally, I just flush the whole set. If I can't complete it, I just forget it. I'm getting rid of these. Goodbye. And then that's what I did after a few years of trying to get Frankenberry. More than several years of trying to get Frankenberry. Couldn't get him. I finally said, I'm never going to get this box Frankenberry. I'm never going to complete this set, so whatever. I just sold them. But those were great toys. I would love to have all four, obviously, in boxes today. And I'd even be okay with loose ones. They're gettable loose. Although even loose, Frankenberry is still hard to find even loose. But they're gettable loose. And one of these days I might get I don't know. I was going to say I might get a loose set. If I could find Frankenberry in nice condition loose and get him, I might then get the other three loose and have a loose set. Box would be better, but box would cost a heck of a lot of money. Even loose wouldn't be cheap, but box probably isn't in the cards right now. But they're very nice toys, very, very, very 70s, very much of the time, and very authentic, and they have the spirit of those characters. It's one thing to have the detail, but it's another thing to have the spirit of a character. And I think these Jada toys, I think they have the spirit of the characters, but the product people had it to a much greater degree. Were much more authentic in terms of the spirit of the characters. And the fact that they're actually from the era of the characters makes a difference to me. They're not retro like these things. Well, let's look at another one here. So this is Frankenberry, and he's got a beautiful color on that box. So this is one of the two that came out in 2021. And, like I said, I would have shown these to you in 2021, except by the time they were available in shipping, other YouTubers had them in their hands for months, and there were plenty of videos already, so what was the point? Kind of anticlimactic at that point to do a video. So instead I'll just do one 2 years later. Here's the photo of the toy. Probably a better look at it than you'll get when I open the box. He's pretty cute. There's the back. And I like this coffin design that they have. That's cool. The nutrition information. Actually, information about the toy. I like the way that's designed. Everything about this box, all three of these boxes, is just, it's excellent. They did a really good job on these boxes, and the color I don't know if that color is really coming through on the screen, but to the naked eye, that's very vibrant. You could just eat it. It looks edible. Okay. And all the, well, the Chocula and the Frankenberry have these bent tops. They shipped like that. That's unfortunate, but maybe they're all like that. I don't know. Okay, let's open it up. Very stiff because I think I've opened this once before. Now this is the second time I've opened it. I have to say that's very impressive. Both those heads are very impressive, but just the figure, the whole figure, just taking it in, it's really cute. I mean, they did a great job of capturing these characters, these animated characters in plastic. And he comes with this little cereal box. I mean, the toy looks edible. I feel like I could take a bite out of that. I think they did a great job of translating these two-dimensional characters into 3 dimensions. And I know these days, if you see them in a commercial or whatever, they're computer animated. They don't look like this anymore. They're computer animated. They have a 3-dimensional look. And even in the 90s, well, yeah, even in the 90s, they were already starting to become very stylized and 3-dimensional. And I don't like that revisionist look. I really wish they would go back on a permanent basis to the original style of these things. I don't think you can improve on these designs. I think even a kid would look at that and just say, which one's cuter? Well, that's cuter. Maybe that's why I didn't warm up to Carmilla right away. She's not cute. The write-up on her indicates she's edgy and fierce, and there's nothing edgy or fierce about these characters. I think even as a kid I understood, yes, they're friendly monsters. They made a point in the commercials of making them scared of kids and scared of cats and just scared of stuff, so that kids understand that these monsters are not scary. They're not going to hurt them. But still, I know as a kid I understood instinctively, these are cursed beings. They're cursed. They're at the bottom of the world. The whole world is punching down at them. That's what a monster is. That's what a Frankenstein's monster is. Maybe not so much Dracula, but certainly Frankenstein's monster, and just monsters in general. They're cursed. They don't have the upper hand. Maybe later ones like slashers and stuff like that. Okay, but the classic ones, they're downtrodden. They're not winners. They're victims who become victimizers because of circumstance. The Frankenstein monster, didn't ask to be what he is. He can't help what he is, that he throws little girls into a lake, or all the other stuff he does, at least the movie version, maybe not the original novel version. That's a philosophical discussion. But the movie, the Karloff version, he's sympathetic. He hurts people, he kills people, but you understand he can't help what he is. So I don't want edgy and cool and hip. I want sympathetic. I want sad characters. I want characters that you feel like you can sympathize with, but you can love them. You just want to hug them and say it's going to be okay. And as a kid, that's how I felt about monsters. I really wasn't scared of them. I think I felt I sympathized with them. I just wanted to be nice to them, be their friend, because I felt like they didn't have any friends. And that's always depicted that way, whether it's King Kong getting shot off the Empire State Building, or Frankenstein being burned in the windmill. Yeah, Dracula's mean. I mean, he's evil, but the mummy's always getting burned, and the Wolfman's getting shot or clubbed, or all these poor monsters, and the creature getting dragged out of his lagoon, and just on and on and on and on. These poor babies, I just wanted to help them. I didn't want to hurt them. I just felt they were like animals that were being abused. I just wanted people to be nice to them. Maybe if people were nice to them, the monsters would be nice. So I feel like these 70s creatures still have that, because they're from the classic monster era. They're from the monster craze of the 70s. They're from the era when kids were into the original monsters. So there's still that spirit, even if it wasn't in the heads of the people who created these things, even if they weren't thinking that. Just the fact that they were tuned into that wavelength of that original monster craze. Well, I mean, the 60s was the original monster craze, but it was a continuation of that into the 70s. The fact that they were tuned in on that, it's in the DNA. It's just naturally there. I mean, just look at that. Here's Count Chocula, my favorite, of course, of the bunch. And again, this is a 2021 box. This is not a 70s box. But they did a great job of capturing that 70s look. It looks a lot like a 70s box. The 70s cereal would have looked different. It wouldn't have had bats. It would have had kind of barrel-shaped, cylindrical marshmallows. But the depiction of Count Chocula, that's very, very close to what he looked like in the 70s. And he was my favorite. And unlike the real Dracula, he was lovable and interesting. The General Mills website points out that Count Chocula is the most serious of the monsters, of their roster of cereal monsters. Count Chocula is the most serious one. And I picked up on that as a kid, that he was a little more serious, a little more genuinely a vampire, kind of like Count Von Count in Sesame Street. There was something, or like the Phantom of the Muppet Show. I know he got renamed in later years, but you know which one I'm talking about. The Phantom of the Muppet Show. He was sort of a serious monster. Some of these 70s characters, these monster puppets and cartoons, there's a seriousness about them, and certain ones particularly, and he's one of them. He does seem like, yeah, he's funny, he's lovable, but he is a vampire. And yeah, I think you did pick up on that. And it's interesting, even today, the General Mills website includes that mention that he's serious. That's interesting that they include that. And even the way he looks on the back, he's not very stylized there. He still kind of retains that 70s look, whereas the rest of them are a little more stylized. And so this monster, well, we'll get to that. He's playing the Monster Mash. That's the idea. He's a keyboardist like me. Yay! Here's what the cereal looks like. And no, that's not what it looked like in the 70s. Not at all. First of all, I think this is corn-based. And the 70s cereal was oat-based. And it didn't look like this at all. These marshmallows were completely different. I wish, along with the anniversary boxes, they would have put out anniversary cereal that looked like the 70s cereal and tasted like it. Well, okay, let's look at Count Chocula, the toy. Here we go. Yep, that is my favorite of the cereal monsters. I like him. And when I had the Product People, he was my favorite of the three. Although, you know, I really liked Blueberry too. As a kid particularly, I thought Blueberry was just so cute. I didn't pick up on him resembling Peter Lorre, or the voice being reminiscent of Peter Lorre. I didn't pick up on that. But I liked his kind of sleepy look, and he was little. He was just cute. They were all cute. But I think Blueberry was cuter than the other two, or Fruit Brute when he came along later. But even though he was cuter, I wouldn't say I liked him best. I think I always liked Count Chocula the best. And when I think of him, I think of Count Von Count from Sesame Street. I feel like they're kind of on the same family tree. Once again, these boxes are just beautifully made. Now this doesn't have that bend. I thought they both did. This does not have it. Huh. It doesn't have the crease in the top like the Frankenberry. And I'm glad they used the magnets instead of the Velcro. The Velcro always comes loose. NECA is still using Velcro, and I wish they'd switch to magnets. This is really stiff. I can't even open it. I don't want to mess it up. That's cool. Look at that. Yeah, it's a little harder to get a good shot of him because he's so dark. Yeah, I'm not really getting a good shot. Well, hopefully you can see him. I'm not too crazy about the wide-eyed head. I don't think that one looks as good. I liked the alternate head on Frankenberry, but I don't like it on Count Chocula. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. But I like the other head. And you can see kind of why I waited so long to do these. I knew it would be like this. I knew it would be hard to really see the toy because of the window and the way it is in the box. And that's another reason I don't do a lot of NECA boxed and NECA toys, because they're in these style boxes and it's just hard to get a good shot of them. This is the better shot. Just look at that. There you go. Now you can see him. Well, yeah, let's look at this. This is another 2021 box. So this is Monster Mash, obviously inspired by the Bobby Boris Pickett song. And I listened to this earlier today because I had not listened to it in 2021. But it's a recording of Monster Mash that's supposed to be sung by the General Mills cereal monsters. You can see them playing in a band there. And they did include Fruit Brute and Yummy Mummy in this, but they didn't put out individual cereal boxes for them. I don't think, as far as I know. Could be wrong about that. And this year, and by the way, this is an actual recording, so you can listen to this recording of Monster Mash. It's not just the box. They actually put out a recording of it. and it's not as good as it would have been in the 70s with more authentic sounding voices. I didn't really get the feeling that Boris Karloff, Peter Lorre, and Bela Lugosi were singing, which I think that would have been the case in the 70s. But, it wasn't bad. They changed all the lyrics around. It's not just a re-recording of the same song. They changed the lyrics too. And with Carmela, they marketed her as being part of this band, like in addition to this band. She's doing her DJ thing, probably like scratching records and that kind of stuff, doing loops, whatever, in her DJ rig. But I don't think they put out a new version of the song. They talk about her doing a remix of the song, but I think that was just like the lore around her character. I don't think they put out a new recording. Maybe I'm wrong. I looked for it. I couldn't find it. I think they just talked about her doing a remix of the song as part of her character. I don't think they actually did remix the song, did they? Maybe they did, and I just couldn't find it. Here's the back. You can see them. I like that Count Chocula plays the keyboard. Now this back does not look like the 70s at all. In fact, this whole box doesn't really give me a 70s vibe at all. And that's the thing, they always sort of do this neither fish nor fowl kind of they give you the nice 70s style front, but then they'll, well, I mean, I guess that's 70s enough, I suppose, but it's not really. Here's the front. That's not bad, but it's not really 70s. They could have been a lot more authentic than that. I think the Count Chocula looks a lot more, just because of the way he's drawn, it looks a lot more 70s. And here's Frankenberry again. Beautiful colors on Frankenberry, that's for sure. Yeah, it doesn't look 70s. Yeah, but it's better than what it could have been. I mean, I'm glad at least they tried. It's nice seeing these things on the shelves every Halloween. I wish they always looked authentically 70s. I wish they didn't stylize them so much. So here they are, the 3 Jada cereal monsters. Better late than never. I think, well, I'm not a Jada expert by any means. I think they're much better than the Universal monsters that Jada made. Much better. And they're definitely the second best set of toys ever made based on these characters. I think the Product People is the best, even though they don't move, they're not posable. They just look so authentic and so cute and so of the era. You just can't beat those Product People. They're very cute. And there's been a lot of merchandising over the years of these characters, so there's a whole world of monster cereals merchandise. So to say these are the best, let's say the best since the 70s, I think that's pretty decent praise. It's not like it's a one-person race. There's quite a bit of stuff out there. And of all that stuff, I think these are the best. And to find something better, you have to go all the way back to the Product People in the 70s. So I am impressed with these. I think they did a great job of capturing the characters in this format. I can imagine even better versions, maybe really nicely done plush toys. Not like rag dolls, but really nice with lots of detail and layers to the costume and vinyl heads. I can imagine maybe like a pull string. I can imagine something like that. I don't think we'll ever see that, but I can imagine really elaborate, beautiful, plush, like pull string cereal monsters with vinyl heads and hands and lots of detail. We won't see that, but I can dream about it. But given that they're made of hard material, they did a great job of making them look soft and friendly. Well, I don't know what else to say. This was, you can tell I think I'm a little rusty coming back from my little break. It doesn't take much of a break to get rusty, just a couple of weeks and I'm already rusty. And I'll be editing out a lot of pauses and mistakes and issues I've had. This episode has actually been a rough episode to shoot. You won't see it because I'm going to cut all that out. But it's been surprisingly, like every few sentences, like I have to cut. Well, got to get back in the swing of things. Not the most dramatic episode, I guess, but I'll be back in weeks to come with maybe some older, rarer, betterer monster toys for your amusement. And hopefully Thanksgiving weekend I'll have an episode out. Hopefully. And we'll try to keep a consistent schedule for a few weeks. I guess that's it. Thanks for watching. Until next time, the one who dies with the most toys is dead.